I measure my days by the weight in my chest and the distance between paychecks that never come. Morning light reaches my window like a tired visitor, thin and respectful, and I lie there, counting the breaths that hurt less than the others. Once, I carried cement and steel as if they were extensions of my own arms. Now I carry silence. It follows me into the bathroom, where I rinse the same mug and swallow water like a promise I struggle to keep. I keep the empty pill bottle on the table, a small lighthouse of plastic. It used to mean relief. Lately, it only marks time. I have learned the pattern of the pain, how it blooms at the edge of effort, how it tightens when I climb stairs or stand too long. I have also learned the pattern of people. In the grocery line, I lower my eyes so the clerk will not ask how I am. On the street, I become part of the scenery. There is a special invisibility to those who cannot keep up. Money left my life slowly, like a tide that forgot to return. First, the little treats, then the bus pass, then the rent that asked for more patience than I had. Pride stayed longer, stubborn as winter, until it became heavy enough to drop. What remained was a careful routine, cheap soup, short showers, a decision every afternoon about what to skip. I became an accountant of discomfort, moving numbers no one would ever see. Sometimes I walk past the old construction site to remind myself I existed in a body that worked. The smell of cut wood lingers at the edges, a memory that refuses to leave. I touch the fence and count the splinters I cannot reach. On better days, I tell myself this is a season. On worse days, I kneel to tie my shoe and forget to rise for a while, listening to the hum of traffic the way a child listens to rain. I tell this not to ask for pity, but to name the truth that lived with me. There is a long road between being and being seen. I walked it in worn shoes, stepping carefully around the fear of asking for help. The pharmacy stood at the end of that road like a small harbor. Bright aisles, clean counters, soft music that tried too hard to be kind. I would go there with a list and leave with a fraction of it, bargaining with myself and the future. The day before I met her, I counted coins under that same thin light and arranged them in small islands on the table. My hands shook, not from drama, but from the quiet math of choosing. I told myself I could make it work. I told myself many things. The bottle on the table listened and said nothing. The pharmacy was warmer than the street, but its brightness felt like exposure. I stood at the counter with the prescription in my hand, my voice small when I asked for the refill. The cashier moved with practiced politeness, scanning, tapping keys, then speaking a number that landed heavier than the words themselves. It was more than I had laid out on the table the night before, more than the little islands of coins and wrinkled bills. I tried to smile, to disguise the truth. My hands searched my pockets like desperate fishermen pulling up empty nets. I asked if there was a cheaper option, though I already knew the answer. Behind me, someone shifted impatiently, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing against the back of my neck. Shame has a sound quiet, but sharp enough to cut. I was ready to turn away, to say I'd come back later, when her voice entered the moment like a soft bell. She was small, wrapped in a faded cardigan, her hair silvered by years but not dulled. She spoke to the cashier, not to me, her tone simple, certain. She would cover it. No hesitation, no ceremony, just a fact she placed in the air. I froze. My first instinct was refusal. Pride rose like an old guard dog, barking that I should stand my ground. But pride does not pay for medicine. Pride does not calm the ache that waits for relief. I turned toward her, my mouth searching for words, but all I managed was a stammer. She gave me a look both firm and kind, as though she had taught generations how to accept what was given. The cashier blinked, perhaps used 2 small acts of charity, but not ones that carried such quiet weight. The transaction finished with the simple sound of a drawer closing. The bag was handed to me, light in my hands but heavy in meaning. I wanted to thank her, to spill gratitude in sentences that could explain what it meant. But she only smiled, a slight upturn of lips that carried no demand for repayment. She patted my arm, her touch gentle as falling leaves, and then she turned toward the door. No speeches, no expectation, just presence, then departure. That night, the medicine sat on my table like a lantern. I did not open it immediately. Instead, I kept staring at the bag, as though her kindness had poured itself into the paper and made it glow. I asked myself why she had done it. To her, perhaps it was just a small gesture, a few dollars slipping away unnoticed. But to me, it was more than the cost. It was the restoration of something I thought I had lost forever. Dignity. Pride and shame argued inside me like two old enemies. Pride said I had accepted charity, that I had allowed myself to become pitied. Shame said I should have walked away, even if it meant returning home with nothing. But then another voice, quiet and steady, whispered that maybe it wasn't pity, maybe it was recognition. Perhaps she had seen not a man broken, but a man carrying too much weight alone. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that kindness has its own language, one that bypasses defenses and speaks straight to the heart. Her gesture had told me I was not invisible, that I still mattered, even in my weakest hour, and for the first time in many months, I felt the stirring of hope, fragile but real, like the first green shoot breaking through winter soil. The following week, as I took my medicine and felt strength slowly return, I began to notice things differently. Faces on the street seemed less indifferent. The air felt less heavy. At the grocery store, I caught myself helping a woman reach for a can on the top shelf. It was nothing, really, but her smile reminded me of the lady in the pharmacy, and I realized I had carried her kindness forward without even meaning to. Weeks later, I found myself standing behind a young man at the checkout line of the market. His hands shook as he counted coins. His shoulders hunched under the same weight I once carried. The cashier announced the total, and I recognized the silence that followed the silence of someone who had just discovered they did not have enough. For a moment I hesitated, but then the memory of that silver-haired lady returned. Without overthinking, I stepped forward and placed a small bill on the counter. Her simple act had changed me. It reminded me that generosity is not about what we give, but what we awaken in others. And so, the chain continued, not through speeches, not through grand gestures, but through quiet moments where strangers remind each other that humanity is still alive. Sometimes, the greatest medicine is not found in a bottle, but in a stranger's kindness. The lady who paid for a stranger's medicine did more than ease pain. She restored dignity, hope, and the belief that humanity still breathes in quiet places. If this story touched you, share it with others. Leave your thoughts below, and join us by subscribing for more stories of light and hope.